Next, let's delve into some technical details such as listening. Listening is a science. You need to learn to take a deep breath and then ask questions. When asking questions, focus more on open-ended questions instead of closed-ended questions because closed-ended questions will easily annoy the other party. When you constantly ask someone, is it, do you, is it okay, it makes them angry. We have done many such experiments in class. Instead, you should ask why, or say, I want to hear your opinion, allowing the other person to speak at length. This makes them feel respected. The highest level of listening is to learn to reflect emotions. Feedback is the most important tool for shaping employee behavior. The only way you can change employee behavior is not through fines. Fines cannot change employee behavior. The most important way to change employee behavior is feedback. You need to talk to your employees. There are two types of feedback: positive feedback and negative feedback. What is positive feedback? When an employee does something right, we give him feedback, telling him that it is right and why. This is called second-level feedback. A large number of entrepreneurs give zero-level feedback. Zero-level feedback means that when they see others do something right, they don't say anything or react. Imagine that you did something right and your boss saw it, but he didn't react. How would you feel? I have heard many people say they feel disheartened. But think about it the other way around. Have you ever given your employees zero-level feedback? When your employees did the things right, did you ever say it? Many people think they should save their praise and give it all at the end of the year. Others believe that verbal praise is unnecessary and that giving more money should suffice. You see, you have so many reasons not to say it, but when you were an employee, you craved affirmation from your boss. This is the pain people experience. We desperately hope to get affirmation from our superiors, but we are reluctant to give our affirmation to others. This is zero-level feedback. Slightly better than zero-level feedback is level 1 feedback, where you praise them, good job, Zhang, well done. But second-level feedback is more important. Praising and explaining why. Simply praising him, giving him money, or promoting him are only first-level feedback and are not enough. The most important thing is to let him understand the significance of what they have done. This understanding is intrinsically important. How can we convey this significance? By explaining why. This is the most effective way to shape employee behavior. Let me give you an example from the field of education involving Mr. Tao Xingji. As you all know, Mr. Tao was a renowned educator. One day he saw two children fighting in the schoolyard. One older child was bullying a younger child. Mr. Tao stopped the fight and told the older child to wait for him in his office for him to finish his investigation. The older child was very frightened, waiting anxiously for the principal to return. Mr. Tao walked in and saw the kid standing there trembling. He came over and took out a piece of candy and said, "Here is a candy for you." The kid, confused, asked, "Why?" Mr. Tao replied, "Look, you came to my office as I instructed, even faster than me, which shows that you respect me as the principal. This is commendable. Take it." The kid said, "Thank you, thank you." Tao then gave him another piece of candy and said, "Here is another one. Do you know why?" The child shook his head. Mr. Tao explained, "I asked around and found out why you fought with a younger child. It was because he was bullying a girl, right? You stepped in to protect her, which is an act of courage. Inaction in the face of injustice is not courage. This is commendable. Take it." The child, now even more confused, said, "Does this mean it was right to fight?" Mr. Tao continued, "Then let me ask you, besides beating him, is there a better way?" The child thought for a moment and said, "I could have separated them without hitting him. I acted too hastily and ended up bullying him myself. Principal, I was wrong. I won't fight anymore." "Very good. Here, take another candy. Why? It is said that no one is perfect. Knowing one's mistakes can lead to improvement, so this matter will be fine as long as it is corrected." Mr. Tao then gave him another piece of candy and said, "Take this one too. Do you know why? Because to err is human, to forgive divine. Recognizing your mistake and being willing to correct it is a great virtue." Now that we've discussed it, you can go back to class. Imagine, if you were that child and your principal had such a conversation with you, would you ever forget it? Mr. Tao, even in such difficult circumstances where the child had already engaged in a fight, what was he doing? Did you notice? He was still making an effort to find and acknowledge the child's positive traits. Everyone should understand that finding fault is one of the easiest things to do in this world because it is part of our nature. Our inherent nature inclines us to find fault because it brings us a sense of security and superiority. As discussed in the book, Your Survival Instinct is Killing You, We naturally tend to point out flaws. This instinct is so ingrained in us that we find it effortless to criticize others, because our primitive genes tell us that you have to be careful enough to survive. This is our nature. Leadership, however, is something that goes against this primitive nature, because you have to encourage others, not just keep yourself safe. You have to inspire and motivate others, which requires recognizing and praising their strengths. This is the best way to shape the behavior of others. So think about what many of our primary and secondary school teachers are doing every day. I once met a father who told me he spanked his son twice a week. I told him that spanking his child is wrong. It's very dangerous. How can you spank your child? He replied, "What can I do? The teacher scolded me in the parent group, saying that I'm irresponsible and not managing my child properly. So I have no choice but to spank my son to make him behave." When we believe that pointing out our children's flaws is the only way to be responsible for them, we are moving further away from the essence of education, because this approach fails to ignite the child's motivation to learn. So the most difficult part is to discover the strengths of others. For many people, they see only flaws and mistakes, and they are always vigilant. But discovering the strengths is the most difficult thing. The second difficult thing is that you have to learn to explain why. For example, telling a child, "You're amazing," without explaining why is not sufficient. Children who are frequently praised with vague statements like, "You're amazing," often develop negative behaviors later on. There is a significant psychological experiment where researchers took two groups of children, gave them puzzles to solve. After the children completed the puzzles, they praised the first group by saying, "You are amazing, you are so smart. You figured out this puzzle. You must be very intelligent." They praised the second group was praised by saying, "You are amazing, you figured out this puzzle, which shows that you are particularly good at exploration and persistence. You are truly impressive." After giving the praise, the two groups of children were given a large number of puzzles and told to choose whichever puzzles they wanted. The researchers observed the choices the children made. They found that the children in the group that the children who were praised for being smart tended to choose simpler puzzles, whereas the children who were praised for their exploration and persistence chose more challenging puzzles. What does this experiment show? First, it shows how our words can significantly influence the child's behavior. Second, it demonstrates how the why should be communicated. When you praise a child for being smart, the child wants to maintain their image of being smart. To do this, they avoid making mistakes to preserve their appearance of intelligence. However, when you emphasize that exploration and persistence are important, the child aims to uphold these values, making them more likely to challenge themselves with more difficult tasks. The same applies to working with employees. You need to focus more on discovering and appreciating their strengths. Do you know why I often mention children when I talk about leadership? It's with good reason. Change is not easy, and the motivation to change for your employees is often insufficient. That's why after a few days of learning, you might revert to your old ways. Habits are powerful. But for the sake of our children, changing our own behavior is something we should do, and you will have enough motivation for it. Therefore, I hope you will use the second-level feedback tool on your children first. After using it for a while and finding that it is effective, use it on your spouse, family members, friends, and slowly on your company. You will find that it brings huge changes to the company. We have seen a lot of such cases. Okay, another important aspect is negative feedback. Criticizing someone shouldn't be done haphazardly. The most important thing about negative feedback is learning to address the issue, not the person. Many bosses claim they focus on addressing the issue rather than the person. But since actions are carried out by individuals, separating the two can be extremely challenging. In contrast, foreigners use a tool called BIC. What is BIC? B stands for behavior. First, you describe the person's behavior. I stands for impact. You explain the impact of that behavior. C stands for consequence. You outline the potential consequences if the behavior continues. When discussing behavior, it is crucial to state facts rather than opinions. For example, saying, "You seem to enjoy being late recently," is an opinion, not a fact. Similarly, "I feel you're not committed to your work," "I think you're not very dedicated," or "I feel you're not getting along well with everyone," are all opinions. As soon as these statements are made, the person being addressed feels uncomfortable because no one likes to be labeled or criticized based on someone's opinion. However, presenting facts is different. For example, "We agreed to start work at 9 a.m. today, but you arrived at 9:10 a.m. is a fact." Did I say you are an irresponsible employee? No, I didn't. Instead, I presented a fact. There may be variance behind your behavior. So I just listed the fact that our average interpersonal evaluation score is 70 and you received a score of 5. You see, this is a fact. When we talk about the facts, what impact will it have? The impact is short-term and local, resulting in observable negative results. For example, if you're 10 minutes late to class today, it will cause us to start the class later, and it will also affect the teacher's performance and distract the teacher's attention. This is what we call the short-term, local, and observable negative effect, called impact. What is consequence? It refers to the long-term effects. If this continues, we are worried that the academic atmosphere of our class will deteriorate, which will be conducive to the effectiveness of our training session. In the consequence part, there is a very important technique, which is to link it with the person's own interests and also the image they project in our class. Why should it be linked to the person's own interests? Because if a person makes mistakes in the long run, it will eventually affect himself. So, from a manager's perspective, you have to tell him the long-term impact on him. Another important reason is that only when he feels that you are considering their situation from their perspective will they find it easier to accept. This is a challenging tool. The BIC tool requires regular practice. Therefore, I recommend that everyone, to master it well, follow the methods outlined in the reference book. List out the BIC components. Initially, write them down and gradually use them repeatedly. At the beginning of learning any tool, especially complex ones like BIC, you will encounter difficulties. Giving feedback is indeed not an easy task, so I hope everyone can adopt a growth mindset. A growth mindset, as Einstein put it, means understanding that insanity is doing the same thing over and over again, but expecting different results. If we are unwilling to change our behavior and methods, if we continuously use the same methods to treat our lives, work, family, and businesses, hoping that our lives will suddenly become different, it's impossible. It's utterly absurd. So if you want things to be different, you have to change yourself and your methods. This is the core message of replicable leadership. Our time is really tight today. Did you notice how quickly I've been speaking? We try to use 1 hour to give you an overview of the core essence of this book. The content of this book is what I usually cover in a 3-day course. We condensed it into words and presented it to everyone, hoping that it will have some positive impact on everyone's family, work, and entrepreneurial journey. Welcome everyone to the study of replicable leadership. Thank you.